Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Theresa May is now the longest-serving Home Secretary since Henry Matthews in 1892, overtaking Rab Butler's 2007-day stint under Harold Macmillan. Lucky them. She survived what's meant to be one of the trickiest jobs in the Cabinet and is spoken of as a possible contender for the next Conservative leader. Giles has been looking into the secret of her success.
Home Secretary Theresa May knows the drill. In the wake of the Paris attacks, she was on the BBC, comfortable reassuring the public, speaking to reporters. It's the kind of confidence that comes with knowing the job, and as of a few weeks ago, doing it longer than anyone in modern politics. Inside the Home Office are portraits of all those who have been Home Secretary in the past, and only one of them has gone on to be Prime Minister. But the current incumbent is the longest-serving Home Secretary since the Second World War, which is quite an achievement, given that this job legendarily dents reputations rather than makes them.
Jack Straw told me when he went into it, he was advised by a previous Conservative Home Secretary in the words, Jack, somewhere in that department, every day, in some corner of it, is somebody who's doing something that can ruin your whole career. And I think that's probably pretty accurate.
Everybody makes mistakes. Every minister makes mistakes. We're all fallible human beings. If you're in another department, there's quite a reasonable chance that the mistake you make will be in some dark, hidden corner where no one's looking. There are no dark, hidden corners in the Home Office.
I would give you the powers you need.
Theresa May is by no means perfect, and for some, hasn't always got it right.
Stand by your vision, Home Secretary!
She upset the Police Federation. She nearly didn't and couldn't deport Abu Qatada, having said she would. It did happen months later. And immigration as a political issue has not left her undented, but she has endured.
If you look at actually the list of things she's done while in the Home Office, it's actually pretty liberal. You've got modern slavery bill, she's scrapped ID cards, she's reduced detention down to 14 days. She's the first Home Secretary that we can do business with, according to The Voice, which is one of Britain's leading black newspapers. For a Tory to have that sort of reputation in a community that's traditionally been quite hostile to a Conservative party, her moves on stop of search, really, she's very hard to pinpoint down, which I think one of her qualities is why she's the great survivor is you can't really put her in a box.
It's either everyday sexism or a political truth that being the most senior woman in government might have helped secure her place within a cabinet of a Prime Minister often accused of having a woman problem. But the first woman to do the job of Home Secretary is generous in her appraisal.
She clearly is effective in the job that she does, and from everything I hear, very hard-working. It's a slight function, I think, of a little double standard that happens at the beginning of parliaments, that she's got away with some things that I'm not sure other Home Secretaries would have necessarily got away with in the past, but good luck to her, right, if she can survive. And I think, I have every respect for the length of time that she's done it and for some of the changes that she's made as well.
And there seems no immediate threat of Theresa May leaving the Home Office. The only question everyone, including the opposition, are asking, is this a sight she might like us to get used to in the future?
How very mischievous. Well, we're joined now by the Conservative MP, Peter Bone. Peter Bone, what do you think is the secret of her success?
Well, she's extraordinarily good. I mean, to survive in that office for that length of time is just remarkable.
Yes, and when I say success, I mean sort of success in staying that long, not necessarily her record as Home Secretary.
But if you looked at what was said in the clip, it's difficult to pin her down because I was involved in the modern slavery bill. Absolutely the right thing to do. People would say that's from the left. Then she's very, very tough on immigration, and I would argue the EU.
Right, she's very tough on immigration, but net migration figures have absolutely soared. I mean, the Tory party has completely and utterly failed on that.
Isn't that her success? I mean, absolutely, the government's completely failed on it, and it's non-stick as far as the Home Secretary is concerned, because a lot of people believe if she was let free from what she wants to do, she would solve the problem.
Really? Oh, you think she is being hampered, do you, by the leadership on that particular issue? It's nothing to do with her.
No,
but I mean, they will say that's your area and you have failed.
No, but you can't, for instance, say you want to reform the European Court of Human Rights, or you want to cut down the number of immigrants without having collective support of the government. But she's made so many hints, and I think you touched it on in the end that she's clearly a very credible candidate to be the next Prime Minister, when this one has quite clearly said he will retire sometime before the end of this Parliament.
Rather than George Osborne?
Well, George Osborne is clearly a credible candidate, but I mean, if you ask me who attracts more within the party of all different, I would say perhaps Theresa does at the moment.
Right.
But they're both extremely talented people and could be Prime Minister, of course.
Right, but you'd rather it was Theresa May who succeeded.
I don't think I said that.
No, I'm asking.
I just said that she would. There's clearly a number of Conservative colleagues who would be very good Prime Ministers, but Theresa May, someone who's held that office of state for so long and done such a good job, clearly has the right to be considered as the next Prime Minister.
I mean, she certainly succeeded where Labour Home Secretaries have failed, and that is to stay in the job for a substantial length of time. I mean, there were so many of them. I mean, clearly over a fairly long period of time.
Well, Jack Straw was there 4 years, actually, and he was quite a successful Home Secretary. But yes, you're right. If you go and see the Home Secretaries, I have done from time to time, there are pictures all down the corridor and back up the other side.
Because they've run out of space.
Home Secretary. You've forgotten who many of them are, but they're all, it's an extraordinary list of people since the war, that is. One of the sensible things Cameron's done, actually, is not have annual reshuffles. And that's the habit that Labour and I think the John Major government got into. And that was deeply destabilising for government, because actually you can only make a difference if you're left somewhere. You make a few mistakes at first, of course you do. If you're left somewhere long enough to make a difference. And she's a very formidable woman, and yes, she's done very well.
Right, and done very well, do you think, from a policy perspective too? I mean, Harry Cole in that film said his assessment is she's quite liberal, having once been described as really quite sort of hard line in many ways, seen as quite liberal on things like stop and search, for example, and saying there were too many white police officers or too many white police forces in England and Wales. Do you see her as a liberal Home Secretary?
I don't see her as a liberal Home Secretary. That was an interesting list he read out. She did take on the Police Federation. She went to their conference and faced them down. Now, I thought that was very, very good. Now, I've been waiting for a long time for a Home Secretary to do that. So, yes, I certainly... on this immigration business, I bet she's been hinting that leave it to her and she could solve the problem, because she wants the votes of people like Mr Bone and others. Actually, it's an insoluble problem, and whoever's Home Secretary, or indeed Prime Minister, can't resolve it. There's a huge change going on in the world in terms of migration.
I think if you're out of the EU,
it
might be a lot easier. Maybe that's one of the... I mean, I think that will be one of the tests for candidates if we're talking about future leadership, with which way they go on the EU issue. Okay. And I would think Theresa May will maybe on the out campaign.
So you're a Fortress Britain man, are you?
I'm for Britain in the world, leading and not stuck in this European superstate of backward-looking countries.
Would you like Theresa May to lead the out campaign in the EU referendum?
Oh, I think no. The out campaign is a cross-party thing. That there's going to be no single leader. I think.
But what about for the Tory side? There has to be a leader. You've just said how strong she is.
No, it doesn't have to be. I mean, the person I'd like to lead from the Conservative is the Prime Minister, when he realises he can't get what he wants, and he's hinted that's what he might do. But I want as many Secretary of States on the out campaign, or the Leave side, as possible. And I would have thought Theresa May is possible one. Do
you see her as a future leader of the Conservative Party?
Well, she's certainly, as Peter says, a candidate. I think at the moment, if the economy continues to go in the way that it's going, it's likely to be George Osborne.
Well, you know, the economy can go either way at any time, yes, so you can't rely on it. And of course, you know, we might have our second woman Prime Minister again from the Conservatives. So, you know, it's a very interesting game, but clearly she's done a very good job as Home Secretary, and I think she's got a lot of support, not only inside Parliament, but across the country.
Peter Bone, thank you.
I've been getting